Nobody has a crystal ball that we know of, but most of us are imbued with the gift of common sense, at least a little bit of foresight, and the restraint to keep us from posting our most incendiary takes for all of the internet to see. Of course, that's not quite true for everybody, and probably for the better.
You gonna tell me that Tim Tebow deserves to be mentioned in the same battle than Kobe Bryant?
Over the years, we've been blessed with so many cold takes we could stock an entire fridge full of free Bud Light for weeks on end. Let's look at the absolutely worst sports takes of all time.
Cold never bothered me anyway.
Doug Gottlieb. You know that meme, I was told Steph Curry couldn't shoot? Well, there's actually a time when Steph wasn't hailed as a point guard virtuoso or the greatest three-point shooter in NBA history. In the 2009 NBA draft, when Curry was a sensation out of Little Davidson College, 6 players were taken ahead of him in the draft. Blake Griffin, Hashim, Can You Feel the Beat, James Harden, Tyreek Evans, Ricky Rubio, and Johnny Flynn. That's right. 2 point guards were taken directly before Steph Curry. Flynn hasn't played in the NBA since the 2012 season, and Rubio took 2 years to even get to Minnesota and had a long career, but fair to say he didn't reach the heights that Steph Curry did. Oh, did I mention that they were drafted by the same team? Not only did they take 2 point guards back to back, but neither of them were Steph Curry. Fucking Timberwolves, man. And that's where ESPN's Doug Gottlieb comes in, as he pointed his bat to left field, called his shot, and said that Steph Curry wouldn't amount to the likes of Brandon Jennings, Patty Mills, and Jeff Teague, along with the 2 players who preceded him in the draft. Swing and a miss, buddy. So 15 years later, has Doug taken his medicine and admitted that he might have been a hair off in his evaluation? No, he's still going.
Respected colleagues at Fox who say crazy things. The statement? Steph Curry is the best point guard of all time.
But now, the goalposts have moved, and he's arguing that Steph isn't the greatest point guard of all time. At least that argument is a debate, but I don't see him comparing Patty Mills or Johnny Flynn to Magic Johnson. Mel Kiper Jr. Mel Kiper essentially invented the concept of a TV scout. He made the industry from the ground up. His career spanned over 4 decades, and it's a long, respectable pathway. And he risked it all on Jimmy Clawson. Who is Jimmy Clawson, you might ask? Clawson was the heir apparent to Brady Quinn at Notre Dame and the predecessor to Cam Newton in Carolina for 1 year. Kiper said that in 8 years, if Clawson wasn't a successful NFL quarterback, that he would quit his job. Well, it didn't even take that long. We knew almost immediately that Clawson wasn't cut out for the big leagues. After being selected with the 48th pick by Carolina, Clawson posted a 1-9 record for the Panthers in 2010, throwing 9 picks and just 3 touchdowns. Put simply, he was dog shit. And it was probably good that he was, because it gave the Panthers the #1 overall pick and the chance to draft known fashionista Cam Newton. Kiper, as you might have guessed, did not quit his job.
I'm going to go with Johnny Manziel. For right now, I have a 2nd-round grade on Deshaun Watson.
Lamar Jackson didn't make your first mock draft, Mel.
But he has proved that even after 30 years of scouting quarterbacks, you can still be dead wrong and get away with it. Mike McCagnon and the New York Jets. Clawson might have been bad, very bad in fact, but at least he got on the field and actually got to prove how bad he was. You can't say the same for this next quarterback. Christian Hackenberg is a very special case. Coached by Bill O'Brien his freshman year at Penn State, Hackenberg looked like he was destined to become the first overall pick in the draft. He had the size, the tools, and the pedigree. But it's a good thing that freshmen aren't eligible for the draft, because Hackenberg might have given Jamarcus Russell a run for his money. Hackenberg proved that he was a flash in the pan his sophomore year, and he threw more interceptions than touchdowns, which is actually pretty hard to do at the college level, unless your name is Keaton Slovis. He rebounded a bit his junior year, just in time for the draft, and for some reason the Jets and GM Mike McCagnon thought him worthy of the 51st overall pick in the 2016 NFL Draft. That might be the worst return on investment we've ever seen out of a 2nd rounder. Look, it's not like he was bad. It was that he was so bad he never once set foot on the field in a regular season game. Do you know how mind-blowingly awful you have to be to not even get a snap after demanding that kind of draft capital? Not even in a kneel-out situation? This is actually a reverse cold take because GM Mike Maccagnan didn't even acknowledge or speak on Hackenberg until 2 years after he was drafted, stating, "I don't think you would look at it as a success." Damn! Hackenberg actually fetched the Jets a conditional 7th round pick from Oakland that never came to fruition because he was almost immediately waived, but he did finally get to play some real football in the short-lived AAF, where he completed 32 of 62 passes and was very quickly benched by the Memphis Express. Now that I think about it, between Nathaniel and Christian, let's be a little more wary of guys with the word hack in their name. And it's funny that Bill O'Brien was involved too. ESPN, the magazine. ESPN is no stranger to missing. I mean, they're the company that employed and trusted fame upon Skip Bayless and a whole bunch of other guys. But their magazine, which was something that you used to buy and take a shit with before you had smartphones, they took some major chances. This cover reads, "Chase Daniel might win the Heisman. His backup might win the Super Bowl. Strike one and strike two." Unfortunately for Chase Daniel, he didn't get a single Heisman vote in 2008, the year this magazine was published, but we do know a lot about Daniel already. He's one of the NFL's most elite bag getters. He only threw 273 passes in his career, but that career lasted 13 seasons in the NFL, an achievement in and of its own. That's a lot of clipboard holding. Also, being a backup QB in the NFL is a lot like a mountain climber who just hangs out at base camp and grows a beard and drinks coffee while the other climbers fall into a crevasse and die of exposure. But let's talk about Chase's backup, another Chase Patton. ESPN The Mag wrote this about Daniel's understudy. Back in 2008, scrappy and stumpy Chase Daniel is looking an awful like the best college player in the country. Funny thing is, he might not even be the best NFL quarterback prospect on the Tigers. That could be the statuesque specimen holding his clipboard, Chase Patton. The only funny thing is that this article made it to print. Not only did Patton never win a Super Bowl, you could have guessed that he never played in the NFL. But Patton is now a success in the field of dentistry, which is a lot like being a Super Bowl champion in the field of oral care. Skip Bayless. Skip. One of the most iconic cold takes to ever grace the internet.
Trade deadline, as you well know, next Tuesday, 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Tony Romo must be traded now.
He's out. Tebow has more box office than Kobe Bryant?
Yes.
We all know that Skip has hitched his wagon to some bad players over the years, but throwing out that Johnny Football will be a bigger deal in Cleveland than LeBron is almost too cold to touch for fear of immediate frostbite.
One day, I am predicting Johnny Manziel will become even bigger in the city of Cleveland than his buddy and business partner LeBron James ever was in the city of Cleveland.
I don't need to tell you that Mr. Football was and is not in the same stratosphere as LeBron James in Cleveland or anywhere else on God's green earth. Maybe College Station, and that's still debatable. At the end of the day, Johnny Manziel is not much of a blip on Cleveland's radar. But Cleveland was born in pain, molded by pain. To them, Manziel is just another name on the back of that jersey. He couldn't come close to the elation, heartbreak, and rejuvenation that LeBron brought to the city of Cleveland in his 2 stops with the team. Ironically, LeBron actually tried to take Manziel under his wing, but in his infinite immaturity, Johnny Football turned down the free guidance from a man who's gone 2 decades in the NBA without making much of a stir off the court, other than, being a tad corny.
Today is Taco Tuesday!
The Las Vegas Journal-Review. You probably don't know or recognize the name Chris Shelton, but you probably know the name Babe Ruth or Hank Aaron. They're pretty famous. For a brief period of time in 2006, those names were being used interchangeably to describe a player. Shelton was picked by the Detroit Tigers in the 2003 Rule 5 draft, which ensures he has to stay on a big league roster for 1 full year or be returned to the team he was selected from. Translation, he was not a highly touted prospect. Further translation, he was kind of a nobody. Shelton had put up decent numbers early in his career, but something changed in early 2006. After an incredible spring training, Shelton hit 2 home runs on opening day, then hit 2 more in the Tigers' 3rd game. Through the first 5 games of the season, he had a batting average of 700 and compiled an OPS of 2.477. Pretty incredible, right? The Las Vegas Journal-Review sure thought so. They said if Detroit Tigers first baseman Chris Shelton keeps the pace he has set in the first 4 games, he will break Hank Aaron's all-time home run record by 2010 and nearly triple Barry Bonds' season record. I don't know if they were being facetious, but like, yo, they typed it out and they printed that shit. Shelton finished the season with just 16 home runs after hitting 9 by April 20th. He didn't even hit 50 ribs, and his average dipped well below 300. Shelton finished his career with just 37 dingers, roughly 700 behind the likes of Hank Aaron and Barry Bonds. It's probably a good lesson, a cautionary tale if you will, in the issue of small sample size. Baseball is a game of anomalies, and Chris Shelton was one of its greatest. But with a name like Chris Shelton, fortunately, he can always fall back on a country music career. So there you have it, the coldest takes of all time, and we didn't even cover everything that comes out of Nick Wright's mouth.